Hey guys, welcome back to Why Just Why. We're going to kick off today with our first episode on our Brexit series. We're going to be covering all of the situations and what's going on. We're going to be starting from the beginning to the end. And again, today, I'm joined by Ian Reynolds.
Hey.
Dave Tinsley.
Hello.
And I am Craig Taylor. So we're going to start kicking off right now at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a mighty big debacle, isn't it?
Saying the least.
yeah. I mean, like Craig mentioned, we're going to start off with what caused the vote in the first place. What caused people wanting to leave? I mean, there are lots of things that happened. You know, you got fluctuations in the market, which can affect us, can affect businesses. And it's how that's portrayed within the media and how the public perceives that. You've got situations like an increase in population. Now, with increasing population, you've got culture diversity. You've got a lot more people fighting over maybe minimal jobs that are available there. Now, instead of educating society, right, informing society, media doesn't always do that. So it's very easy for people to misinterpret what is happening on an economic scale and a cultural scale. We have been a multicultural society, but
there is quite a lot of the country that is very multicultural. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I was born and raised here in Liverpool. Liverpool has always been a port city, and I grew up with just people from all over the world in my school, and I wasn't in a particularly different area to anyone else. I mean, there was always someone from somewhere else here. It's a very, very widespread.
So even the term for people from Liverpool, Scouser, right, and the dialect in which we speak, Scouse, it actually comes from the dish itself, which is just an amalgamation of everything, big mixture of. I mean, every person you ask will have a completely different recipe for it.
Oh yeah, Scouse is just it's a pot that you throw everything that you've got in the fridge in, and it's just a big stew.
But
it's
I was going to say, for people who don't understand, it's stew.
Yeah, that's basically what Scouse is.
Yeah.
Scouse is a nice thick stew with, well,
anything
in it.
I'm getting so hungry just
Everything
thinking about Scouse. Oh.
If there's an old shoe, you whack it in.
Yeah, leather goes great with Scouse.
Shopping trolley.
Old condoms,
Ooh.
used or unused, adds a bit of protein. It doesn't matter.
But that is it, and it's that mixture. And because Liverpool was a major port city, we had this mixture, and we still have today this mixture of different cultures, and that's what we've took it from, because we are just a big mix-up, and that.
And you do see that with a hell of a lot of port cities.
Yeah.
London itself is still massively multicultural, and we are. You do see it with a lot of the places which had a lot of traffic from other countries.
Yeah.
Still to this day are quite happy and quite reasonable to speak to anyone.
Yeah.
Be friendly. It's not a big thing for me, for example, to speak to someone who's from the Czech Republic or Poland or France or wherever. It's, to me, they're just people, and that's generally because of where I think I was brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, the way you're brought up and where you're brought up, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can also have the places where they weren't as heavily affected by these different cultures and still have their own culture and weren't used to integrating. And I feel that these places would it'd be easy for someone from there to misconstrue, to feel like, oh, everything's changing. People are coming in, they're changing things, they're doing this. And it does make a massive effect where people are saying, oh, I want out, because they're all coming in here and they're changing how we are and they're changing how we're speaking. And, every time you try and maybe phone up a company or interact with someone, you're interacting with someone who you maybe can't understand. And the funny
because
thing
a lot of things are being outsourced.
Yeah. And the funny thing, the irony is, there are that many dialects within the UK itself. Anyway, every time you speak to someone, there's a good chance of speaking to someone you can't understand.
Yeah, I mean, using a personal anecdote, I used to work in a bar. And as we explained in our previous episode, as we're from Liverpool, we generally speak pretty fast. Now, I worked with a guy from Birmingham, and Birmingham, for people who aren't familiar, has got an accent like this, which is pretty slow and steady, and sounds a bit like Ozzy Osbourne, and they elongate words quite readily. And the problem with that is that when someone's talking like that, and they happen to be talking to someone from Liverpool.
This has become the most boring news ever.
The guy from Liverpool is speaking at 1,000,000 miles an hour and basically is doing exactly what Dave's just said and going, "Oh my God,
So
will you
impatient.
speed up?"
It's like I'm proper rocking in my chair.
Just start getting itchy teeth thinking,
Yeah.
"I need you to speak faster right now."
It's true. Yeah.
And it's so difficult, and you're trying to be really understanding, and then you're trying to slow down your own speech because the guy from Birmingham's used to being so much slower,
Yeah.
and then all he hears when a guy from Liverpool comes up to him is
like the old low pack adverts. Like,
it is.
Yeah.
But it is really like that. You get some people from either end of the UK in itself, and it's very much not like a lot of other countries. There's a lot of other countries out there like Canada or the US where, yeah, you do have variations in tone and dialect, but that varies from like state to state.
Yeah.
The UK is not a very big place, and yet we can drive for 20 minutes and it'll be like you're in a different country.
Yeah.
It's like Liverpool and Manchester.
Liverpool and
You
Manchester.
don't even have to go that far.
No, true.
From,
Don't you?
you can literally go up the road to Widnes, which you can drive to in about 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And
And you can smell
Yeah.
within 5 minutes of it.
Again, for people who don't know, we're not bashing Widnes and saying that they're
it's
all
just-
smellies. It's a
fields of
very
poo, that's all.
it's a very, very big chemical plant area as well. It's very industrial.
Think of
And-
Springfield, Simpsons.
Yeah, basically. If you go there at the wrong time of day when the chemical plants have got the cover of darkness or clouds, for example, they decide that's the time to release all of the smelly chemicals. And it really, really is like that. You've been
That's
driving through
chemicals,
Widnes.
not people.
People and chemicals. Oh, but it's crazy. But that kind of microcosm in itself, I mean, the UK has been in the common market, which was the precursor to the EU. That was the thing that they actually voted to join, and they've been in there since 1973. And ever since they joined in
Bloody hell, it's been that
1973,
long,
yeah, it's been that long. Since they joined in 1973, and there was actually multiple votes. This is something that I should point out early, is that when we get to it in another episode, there's only been one vote to leave the EU. There was actually 3 attempts to join the common market, and the first 2, they said no. So there is precedent there as well. And my opinion is there is nothing wrong with more democracy, giving people more chances to have their say. There is nothing wrong with that.
Informing a culture, a society, and then re-questioning them. And then just double-checking.
Just double-checking. If the situation changes, that does not make a bad thing. If, for example, someone turned around to me and said, "Do you want a bucket of water over your head?" And I went, "No, thanks." And then 10 minutes later, I was on fire, and they went, "Do you want a bucket of water over your head?" I might go, "Actually, yeah, please." But if they looked at me and went, "Too late, you gave me an answer 10 minutes ago. Go fuck yourself now. Burn, bitch."
All bets are final.
I'm sorry, I must accept your first answer. But that's where a lot of it stemmed from. I mean, there was a lot of unrest, and even from my own experience and the fact that Liverpool itself, majority of the city actually voted to remain. We were one of the few areas that did actually vote to remain in the EU. From people I know from not that far away, from in Wales, a couple of the little villages out there, a conversation I had with a good friend was, "Why did you vote to leave?" And they're like, "Oh, well, all the people from the EU, they're coming over here and taking our jobs." It's like, but in a little village, so have you lost your job? So no. So how many people from the EU live in your village? Well, none. Do you know any people from the EU? Do you know any Polish people or Czech people? Oh no, all the people from around here are from Wales. Who's took your job? Where's... What? How? What?
Yeah.
Why? What?
This is the problem with the media, because this is what instigates a lot of this. Is the media will constantly put out controversial stuff. Anything, obviously, I mean, one problem is you cannot fault them. That is what they're there for, to entertain. And how will they sell? To write more provocative things, to create interest. I mean, you don't go watch a film and it says, a man went to shop and he bought some stuff and he went home, right?
I've seen that film, it's amazing, you know.
I mean, in all fairness, it's a masterpiece, isn't it?
Man gets milk. Oh, great.
And the sequel. The milk was spoiled.
No! Epic plot twist.
Well, even just now, what we're doing, we're giving you information, but we're not just sitting here going, the EU became the EU in 1973. We're not doing that. We're talking you through it because it's better.
Yeah, because you need that information so you can make up your own minds.
Yeah.
You need broad strokes. Do you know?
Yes, broad strokes.
But where's the media? They're quite selective in what they give you. And it's fine, it's entertainment. But the problem is where it becomes quite dangerous.
Very persuasive, isn't it?
Well, it's the fact that a lot of society take that as their source of information.
Yeah, like the most popular news channel or outlet or whatever.
Well, yeah,
they
let's
will
look
follow
at
stuff like that, won't they?
look at America, for example, and look at Fox News. I mean, Fox News, to me, the fact that it's actually called a news station is laughable in itself. And even though some of the things they present is true in a sense, it's like that sense of, well, technically true is the best kind of true. And it's like the difference between saying there's been a minor outbreak in one hospital of Ebola because one person came back from Africa. They actually were infected there. So now there's a quarantine and it's all fine. There's a difference between saying that and then what technically is true, where Fox News would go, Ebola outbreak in major areas in the city. There's massive scares about this deadly killer virus, which is going to kill anyone who comes in contact with it. Now, technically that's true. Doesn't mean it's realistically true.
Yeah.
And people's interpretation of that it extrapolates. And this is the problem is, so if you take someone, I'll speak with my own father, for example. Now, he is not going to come home, go on the internet, start researching things, go on government websites, verifying stuff over and over and over again to make up his mind. You know, people have lives, they have children, that they have
there's not
work.
enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
So, in that half an hour window,
They just want quick news, don't they?
they turn to the news, and then the problem becomes then is they trust the news.
Yeah.
And the news isn't honest with them. It's not that it's not honest. It, like you just gave that example.
It gives its own spin.
Yeah. It manipulates. It's very clever in how it puts that information across to grab you. But the problem is it makes it very easy to misinterpret,
Yeah.
Right? And then people get these different ideas, different understanding. And then that's how you have a whole society of people who are just completely misinformed of the situation.
Yeah, that's right.
Which unfortunately leads on to, why you would, something like how a vote like this could happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was enough anger, there was enough debate over it that the vote had to happen eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a vote there because there was a lot of uproar over our membership in Europe. There was a lot of misinformation, and then there was a lot of people with genuine concerns because I would not count myself as a Europhile. I wouldn't say that I absolutely love the EU. And yes, I know "file" has other meanings, but technically it means love. Let's not go there. Europhile.
That's
so
what Ian Watkin said.
Yes.
Europhile.
Europhile.
Europhile. What's your name? Peter. Peter what? Peter File.
I've never ever heard the term Europhile.
Have you never heard? Basically, you can have a file of it. It's either a skeptic or a file or a phobe. They're the three that get used. So Europhobe.
Craig is a connoisseur of the file.
A master of the file.
I file this so much.
So anyway, I would not say that I am a lover of the European Union. There is a lot of things where it is very, very pro corporation, and there's not. It does wield a fair bit of power, but there are a lot of people who are misinformed about how much power that the EU actually had. For example, people think that the EU just can make laws, but it can't. It can vote on them, it can sanction them and pass them, but it's the member states that actually put forward those laws.
Is that laws that will directly affect the country?
That will affect the
But
EU,
from-
the EU as a whole. So, quite a lot of the laws and regulations that were put in that people had problems with actually got put forward by our own government and then were voted on by the EU. So it wasn't really the EU that put them in place. It was us.
It was us first.
It was us
It's
first.
our government which voted for.
we voted for. So, if anything, we wielded quite a lot of power within the European Union. As of
Not enough power.
not enough power. We weren't in control of the whole thing. But then, granted, we are one of the biggest contributors to the European Union. We've flitted between second and third over many, many years in terms of contributions.
Was everyone pissed off because we weren't first?
Probably.
Is that another one?
Yeah,
That's probably it.
Give more. We want more.
But we do get a lot out of the European Union. I mean, free movement for some of us is one of them, but then for others, a lot of people don't like that. It's not the
Losers.
only issue, though.
we that's the thing you get. Like a lot of people missed out. Everyone felt as if though we were giving money and we were getting nothing back.
Yeah.
No, they were distributing the wealth back to us, but in agreeable ways where maybe our government wasn't doing.
Yeah.
So, well, again, speaking from someone who's been brought up in the north of England and Scotland and Wales, they don't get as much attention, let's say, from the coffers of
The voice isn't
the
there
UK government
as much.
and we don't get a lot of attention. We don't get a lot of money and a lot of support from Westminster, which is basically all about the south and of London, and that is a fact. There is a north-south divide. Wales is very impoverished, and Scotland as well does not get enough attention, although they have had it a bit better since they've had a bit of a devolved government and they've been able to sort out some of their own taxes and laws. I do see a divide there. Now, from the EU and from our membership of the EU, Liverpool has had quite a boon. They've had some decent funding come from the EU. It's given us community centres. It's made us the capital of culture in 2008. It brought a lot of tourism, brought a lot of money. It's been good for us, and I can see why people voted to remain. We've seen the good side of it.
Yeah.
Now, other places, they just see this boogeyman who's taking our money, forcing laws onto us, taking our sovereignty. And I do understand that side of the arguments because, again, it's minor misinformation and scaremongering, but it can go a long way.
Is that capital culture still going? Because we were what, 2008, right?
2008 we went. Yeah, it is. The current, there's actually two. The current ones is Plovdiv, and I know I've butchered that name. So if anyone knows how to spell it, say it right.
Where's that?
It's in Bulgaria.
Oh, it's okay.
Plovdiv.
I've heard good things about Plovdiv.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, the name says it all. It's great. And
From
then,
Trump.
and then it's a city in Italy as well, Matera.
Okay.
Again, I'm probably butchering those names, so if anyone can tell me how to pronounce them, feel free.
Trump said he was going to build a house in Plovdiv, and it was going to be the best house.
He was going
The
to.
best house the Plovdiv's ever seen.
But he was going to realise he had to pay tax.
Yeah. Now, he'll have a meeting there, and he'll be like, "Oh, we can't pay tax. Because if I build a house here, It's going to be so good for your economy.
It'll have 9 bathrooms.
Just think of the bathrooms.
But there's a lot.
Just don't all flush the toilets at once.
Bulgaria's famous
There's
for
a lot of good
toilets.
things that Trump can bring to a community. Tax isn't one of them. Money's not one of them. Comedy now.
Come on,
Yeah,
hey.
you can bring the good
Walls. You can bring some
Was that
massive walls.
walls or walls?
Take the wall.
You can bring decent pout as well and some floppy
Oh.
hair.
You could teach them how to pout. You could. Come on, ladies, line up.
Well, moving back to the vote itself and how we ended up actually getting one of these referendums, there was also a lot of pushback for basically some big businesses to push us out of the EU because they don't like the regulation that we've got. As we've seen with some of the things going on in the US with Trump and with him doing stuff like pulling out of the Paris Accords and pulling out of all of the deals with places like Iran. He's started a trade war with China, and he's moved a lot of oversight in terms of what the government will do to block companies from doing like
He put sanctions on like Iran and things, didn't he?
he's put sanctions on loads of different countries,
Yeah.
but the main ones is he's removed restrictions for companies, so they don't have to follow a lot of environmental targets that they used to have.
All right.
That's why he pulled out of the Paris Agreement. He's just trying to remove all of these things that are set in place to.
Why does he not want to be part of something like that?
Well, because in order to hit environmental targets, companies have got to spend quite a bit of money. It can cost them money and it can stop them from expanding. Now, other countries that haven't signed up to the Accords, like basically the biggest polluters in the world, so India, China, they just go ahead and do whatever they want. Now, a lot of the manufacturing jobs that used to be in America have moved to China because it's cheaper. Now, him starting these trade wars and removing restrictions means that a few of those jobs are coming back. Now, it's never going to be as much, but it now means that America is polluting a hell of a lot more than it was. Now, there's a lot of big businesses here.
Is that because it's getting done in America now, rather than China? Are you saying that
There's more business moving back to America because there's less restriction on business there.
Okay.
So the less if a company, for example, can make little plastic toys for 10 pence a pop,
Yeah.
but in order for them to cost 10 pence a pop, they've got to pump sulfuric acid into the air. Now, 99% of the world will go, I'm not having that factory next door to me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Now, there are a few countries in the world who'll just go, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want, don't care. Now, the company, because it's a company, it's not a person with morals, it's a company, will think to itself, well, I'm just going to stick it wherever I can, and I'm going to do it that way. Whereas it might cost 20 pence to stop that sulfuric acid to go into the air.
Yeah.
So it's going to be cheaper, and they're going to go wherever it's cheaper, and they're going to go wherever they're going to make the most money. So the EU has got restrictions in place for things like our own health, safety restrictions, safety on food, safety on materials, making sure that there's not going to be a big blade sticking out of a teddy bear when it comes out of a factory, making sure that they're not going to poison us every time that they put a new flavour into Diet Coke or something.
Even something simple, which is on the media lately, is peanuts, nut allergies. People have a lot of food allergies. Some of the restrictions that can be in place are even if you're producing anything to do with nuts or any other, like soya, anything that someone could be allergic to.
Yeah.
Making sure that there are steps in place so it cannot be cross-contamination can happen. Even to the point where you're preventing staff members from bringing those products or anything that contains those products on site.
In case it gets in somewhere.
Exactly, which protects the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
All
see
this
anything
there-
wrong with that.
Yeah.
All this there is to protect the public. Whereas, like Craig was saying, businesses don't like these sanctions. Businesses don't like them because it costs money,
It costs a lot of
time,
money.
effort to actually control them. And if you say, oh, we can take them away, and then next thing they're not liable as well, because that's the main part of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if businesses could get away with things, they have done many times in the past.
Yeah.
If they can get away with bending the rules or just outright breaking them, and there's not enough sanctions in place, they'll just do it. The pharmaceutical industry is absolutely rife with it and guilty of just basically not caring.
Yeah.
And they don't care because there's not enough sanctions in place to fine them enough for them to actually start caring. It really does depend on what the punishment is in terms of companies, because again, companies are not people. They have no morals. They're run by people. But once you get to that size, there's no morals involved.
It's purely what's the cheapest thing we can do.
Yeah.
How do we cut costs here? And the main question is, well, would we be liable for it?
Yeah.
No, or we can get past that. Well, technically we won't be liable if we can do this or we can do that. That's all disclaimers and just covering themselves just by writing a little thing, just so they can't be pulled apart.
So that is another major reason why we had the referendum in the first place, is that a lot of big companies wanted no oversight, they wanted no regulation, and because we have these EU-wide regulations, UK itself couldn't actually go against them. So they could put laws in place to say, okay, we're not going to look at that, but then the EU laws would override that because it's over the entirety of the EU. And anything that gets traded between them, then that would come under it as well.
Yeah, it's all being monitored by the EU then, isn't it?
Well, yeah, pretty much, because it's part of our trade agreement is that everything's got to be up to the same standards, so that's why we've got no tariffs, we've got no checks or borders to say this is safe here, so it's going to be safe there.
Yeah, but saying, so saying if we leave, it's going to be a case of it's charging us to go over if it was a trade over there.
Yeah, because they've got to check it, make sure it's okay, they've got to make sure that it's legal.
Which is quite mad, isn't it, considering, we've been in the EU since, 73?
Yeah.
And yet, just like that, it's a case of we've got to do checks now because you're
pretty much.
not with us anymore.
Technically, that's what the HSE are doing anyway.
Yeah,
for us.
Yeah,
but then they'd say, well, obviously we can't trust your HSE now
because you're not under the same regulations.
What's HSE again?
Health and Safety Executive.
Yeah. Okay.
So they used to be essentially what they'd be doing is the checks, and when we sent them over to Europe, they'd be fine. Wouldn't have to check them again.
Yeah, because they go, we trust your HSE because they check things to the same standard as us.
Yeah.
So that's one of the major ones. The corporations don't want that oversight. So they were paying people, lobbyists, to basically lobby the government and say, okay, we want a referendum, we want this out. If you manage to get out, get rid of the oversight, we'll bring loads of jobs here because we can put our factories here and we can make loads and loads of money. We can give you loads and loads of money. Wouldn't you like loads and loads of money? I'd like loads and loads of money.
Get more taxes and
money. And that's basically another reason why that started to happen. So there was a public pressure, there was corporations pressure. A lot of it was coming from all sides, so the government had to respond eventually. So another one as well, coming from the public side, was the rose-tinted glasses effect. That was another one that came from it, is that way back when, before we joined the European Union, the UK had an empire which the sun never set on. It's the old imperial days, rich as anything, money coming from every corner of the globe.
Great times.
Good old days, man.
Great times. And a lot of people look back on those days and think, because we had quite decent employment, because no one was really that skint, you could go and buy a house on a wage that you got from a job, not like nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
That from a working class wage or a minimum wage. What's the new one? The a living wage.
Living wage.
The living wage. Well, that won't really buy a pot of piss in at the moment.
Oh no, you'd be lucky if you can afford to rent a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially in some areas, I mean, no one is from London nowadays. London, you literally cannot afford to live in London unless you are a multi-millionaire.
Yeah,
that is just
you grow up in London and you move out unless you get a good enough job to move back in.
Yeah, The way you live in
Come
London,
back when you're rich.
the way you live in London is if you started as a peasant in a block of council flats, which just now so happen to be in the Greater London area, and somehow your great granddad managed to buy that council flat for about 10 grand. That council flat now is worth £3.7 million. And your families live there forever because they are terrified that if they actually decide to sell it, they wouldn't be able to afford a shoebox round the corner for £4.8 million. It is insane, the property prices in London. And I do understand that that's pretty much the same for a lot of capital cities over the world. But London is something else. The prices there.
The costs.
The costs are astronomical. It's like people are looking through things in terms of the rose-tinted glasses. They're looking at the old days and they're saying there was more employment, things were cheaper, inflation was down. You could actually afford a house, you could afford a car, you could live on your wage, and you could be comfortable. Even in a menial job, you could quite happily go and get a job in a factory and live a decent life and raise a family. Nowadays, though, it's a lot different, and well, people are seeing it differently.
There's a lot of change. There's a lot of change, and people don't like change. It creates causal links. It's very common with people to do this. There's a little phrase that some of you may have heard. It's post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's Latin, so Boris will know what that means.
Oh yeah.
Just for you.
2-1 in the classics. He'll be right on that, right on it.
So for anyone who isn't Boris, that means after this, therefore because of this. Now, essentially, all we're saying here is that one thing has happened, then another thing happens. Well, the first thing must have caused it. So if I drop a pen and then it starts raining, well, obviously every time you drop a pen, it rains. Now, obviously not directly like that, but essentially that's logic,
like the gist of it.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the gist.
That's how a lot of superstitions and well, even some religions started.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Mayan culture in Mexico, I'm lucky enough to have been to Cancun. Went on a nice tour to one of the old Maya ruins, and the tour guide was actually telling us that one of the watering holes around there, they believed that there was a crocodile god who lived in the watering hole. Actually, just turned out to be quite a lot of crocodiles, but let's say that it was crocodile god. A pretty girl was sacrificed to the crocodile god. They had an amazing harvest. So then they thought, oh, well, the god's taken her as his wife. Got a good harvest. Great. So they carried on going. Another good harvest after that year. Next harvest was an awful year. So they thought, oh, gods must have been bored. Got bored of the wife. We'll find an even prettier girl. Let's kill her. So they throw her in. They have another good harvest. And then next year, no, bad harvest again. Okay, we need a prettier girl. He's got bored of her even faster. Let's find a pretty girl. So they throw her in. But at this point, no good harvest. They go, well, maybe she wasn't that pretty. Let's find a prettier girl. And that's how it starts. Because once that's ingrained, they just go, well, it must be that, and how?
That is exactly it. And that is what... And the fact that even that you said there, oh, well, she must have been that pretty. People will actually change their thought pattern.
It'll reinforce,
yeah,
even though it's actually proven that it's not. It'll reinforce the belief they had that it is.
Exactly, that is, and this is what we see in society, where there is change and people are looking to blame it on something.
Yeah.
And so we'll hang on, like you said, things are getting dearer, everything's changing out. Well, what else is changing in society? Oh, hang on. There's loads of people coming in, population's going through the roof, culture's changing. It must be this. It must be what's causing that then. Yeah. Or they're allowed to just go in and out, and
it's like everyone's just looking in the wrong directions.
Yeah, totally looking in the wrong direction.
They're just looking for an excuse and not actually looking for the reason
why.
But
it's not just that people are looking in the wrong direction. Sometimes they're getting pointed in the wrong directions because you've got things like the media, but like the people who you should really be looking at, like people who are sitting on billions upon billions upon billions of pounds. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't earn that money, but there is a reason that the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor in the modern society is that the distribution of wealth is impossible to rebalance in the system we've got now. You can talk about trickle-down economics all you want, but no one's ever going to dethrone Bill Gates with the amount of money that he's got. No one's ever going to dethrone Jeff Bezos. The only people who are going to be able to take their money away from them is them.
Yeah.
If they give it away, then that's fine. But there is no way that anyone will be able to reach their heights starting from the ground up unless they are astronomically lucky.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Well, even Jeff Bezos
But
himself.
he's a lizard. He's not human.
No, he's not. He's a lizard man. Well, then it's all... I mean, realistically, we're looking away from the real problem here. And that's the Illuminati. Let's face it. It's all a big, massive world conspiracy by the New World Order and the lizard people. And David Icke had it right all along. And I know I'm going to get shut down for saying this, but, I mean, Boris is obviously a lizard as well. So is Trump.
You can see it in his movements.
He's
just
got
the tongue, if you know him.
Yeah, just the...
And it's the wig. You can tell it's a wig. We know it's a wig, Boris.
Pull the wig off, his skin just falls off with the lizard underneath.
Right, folks, unfortunately that's all we got time for this week. But join us next week when we'll be talking about the referendum campaign itself and how that resulted. Obviously, we all know that, but we'll give you a bit more detail about it. If you really enjoyed this, which I hope you did, we enjoyed making it, so if you don't like it... No, we love you. We do love you. Thanks for listening. Craig will give you a little bit more info on what you can do if you want to share that, send that love back to us.
Spread the love, man.
Spread the love. So yeah, as I said on the last episode, if you would like to give us your suggestions, if you got any comments, if you like what we're doing, links will be in the description. We are in the process of setting up lots of social media channels as well, so there will be links as well in there if you'd like to talk to us that way. That is completely up to you. Thanks again. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
I don't know what the fuck that was.